Good morning, everyone. Uh, Welcome all to the third annual day organized by Symbiosis School of Economics. Uh, there's a history behind it. Though Symbiosis School of Economics started in 2008, we first celebrated our annual day during the first outgoing batch in 2011. So it's not our fifth, but our third annual day. Uh, we have an academic ritual of offering our prayers to Goddess Saraswati. So I'll now ask the students to recite the Saraswati Shlok and have the Saraswati Vandana. We'll follow it by the lighting of lamp. Okay?
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्र वस्त्रान्विता या वीणा वरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेत पद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शङ्कर प्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सदा पूजिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेष जाड्यापहा.
I'll now invite our advisor, Dr. Jyoti, our chief guest, Professor Aromer Ravi, the student council representatives, and our deputy director, Ruddhasa, to come and light the lamp, please. He's taking the photograph. It's a great pleasure to have amongst us a person who has been a researcher, an international consultant, and practitioner with extensive interdisciplinary experience in public policy, development, technology, and sustainability. He has been the founding director of TARU, a leading South Asian research consulting firm, and has lectured and taught widely in India and the West. He has been a senior advisor to various ministries of the Government of India, including the National Planning Commission, and consulted with a wide range of multilateral and bilateral development institutions, including the World Bank, UNEP, UNU, and DFID. Formerly trained as a technologist, lawyer, management and finance specialist, he was one of the first researchers from the South to apply ecological systems analysis and design methods to then fuzzy concept of sustainability in the mid-1980s. He has made significant contributions to human settlements development in India, for which he was elected an Ashoka Fellow in the 1990s. He's currently the director of Indian Institute for Human Settlements, India's first prospective national university for propagating research and innovation to address challenges of increasing urbanization through an integrated program of education, research, and consultancy services. Please welcome Professor Aromer Ravi, and I'll now request Dr. Jyoti, our advisor, to please felicitate the chief guest. I would now like to request Dr. Jyoti to please come down and give us the annual report and journal entries. Thank you.
A very good morning to everyone. Welcome to our third annual day. On behalf of the students and faculty of Symbiosis School of Economics, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Aromer Ravi, whom I have been hounding since 2010. And it has taken us this long for it to fructify to a meaningful visit to Symbiosis School of Economics. The other dignitary on our dais, our very own Dr. Rudra. A good morning to him and to and a very good morning to all of you. I stand in front of you today not in the capacity of a director, but in the capacity of an advisor. And let me tell you, this has been a more difficult task for me as an advisor than as a director. Because when I was a director, it was a very defined role. And when I was the advisor, it had some elements of ambiguity. And when I was making this report, I came to realize that we've put in a lot of hard work, which you're going to see over these slides. Well, as you can see, the School of Economics started in 2008 with a BSc program, in 2011 with an MSc program, and in 2010, we even had the PhD coursework, which was conducted on behalf of Symbiosis International University by the very faculty at Symbiosis School of Economics. We have two specializations at the Masters, that is International Trade and Development Studies. We've had our certificate courses over course of time, that is Quantitative Economics and NSE and the Corporate Social Responsibility, which are doing pretty well. In fact, the NSE module has more than 40 students who are a part of it, and from 43, the number's gone to 47. These programs are very successfully run as value-added programs for our students. Our vision is to provide the environment for an incredible education experience and to evolve into a major research center, creating a difference in a civilized society. For this, our mission has been to create a very rigorous applied economic analysis relating to real-world issues of social relevance. That's where some element of urban development comes in, because we feel it's absolutely relevant, not just socially, but in all aspects. What is so different about the Symbiosis School of Economics and a large number of institutions that run an economics program? Yes, we have a BSc Economics, whereas others have a BA, but in Calcutta University, you have a number of institutions which even offer a BSc Economics. We have a program structure which is very unique. It has its internal and external evaluation. At the undergrad, it is 40-60, 40 internal and 60 external, but at the Masters, it is 60-40. When I talk about it being interdisciplinary, I mean we do have political science, we have finance, we have law, we have business communication. We also have reading the classics. We even have German, French, and Spanish being taught. So there's that interdisciplinary approach that comes in. And we have a lot of research methodology being taught right from second year when you do your primary and secondary data collection, especially for those who are in SY BSc right now. We are also looking at how our students can be a part of the international framework where they can even have the experience of a semester abroad or a summer school before they end their education, the undergrad or the masters. The student strength from 82 has moved to 450, 470. We hope that with the certificate courses, we can take it up to 500 in the next year. More than the students' target, I think we are going to concentrate in the next year on quality and being more quality conscious. Obviously, there is no diminishing returns to excellence, and we hope that we move in that direction soon. We have a pan-India presence of more than 24 states, more than 90 cities, and more than 12 countries. 20 students, international students from 12 countries. I think we do seem to have a decent international presence. Where do we see ourselves? And in seeing ourselves, we are at the second spot right now on capacity building. The process is ongoing. The next is to create a research center. The work is happening, but a lot needs to be done. The areas I shall define in my next slide. And to become a research center, think tank, and be involved with policy making, maybe we are being optimistic by 2020, but I'm sure we would make a difference soon. We are already into urban studies in a very small way, and area studies, especially Pune, Maharashtra, and Asia. This Asia studies comes in when we are doing international trade, and we talk about the various agreements. And with Maharashtra and Pune, through our urban development framework that we are looking at. We've already got these courses approved by the Academic Council and by the Board of Management, that is on public policy and governance, globalization, taxation, and urban governance. And once we move to our new campus, we have the game plan changes. So while the game plan gets waiting for all our clearances to come from various departments for our Viman Nagar project, we are going to do a lot of thinking after this academic year gets over. That is after the end of March. In the month of April, we'll be doing our thinking about where we are going to be when we move to the Viman Nagar campus. So where does SSC take you? And where SSC takes you, students, especially those who have joined first year MSc and first year BSc. For those who are in second year MSc and second and third year, you've probably run through this before. But our students are at IGIDR, at Madras School of Economics, at GIPE, at Indian Law Society Pune, and various other such places, right to the University of Warwick, St. Andrews, and even in Canada. And we hope that they can make the global and national presence felt. All this would not have happened without the guidance of our young and promising faculty, who've taken a lot of pains and efforts to help you reach a certain level. Vis-a-vis the job market, UBS Verity has been consistent with us. Our students are with them since 2011. SP, Capital IQ, Great Place to Work, coming back to Facebook, Bloomberg, and a number of other such places where students have found themselves. We found from the first batch that graduated and the second batch, those who successfully graduated, everyone is successfully positioned somewhere and is not groping in the dark. I think, again, efforts on placement front need to go to Pallavi, to Ashlesha, and to Amir, who's joined this group now, to see that students are positioned in the right places where they would like to go after taking their education from SSC. Once students finish SSC at the master's level, they also undertake various internships, and let me tell you, Aro, we've had very good internships for our students at MSc. We've had 2 years of internships which have gone very successfully. The students have left their mark at institutions where they've gone, and we are hoping that this whole trend continues right from RIS, that is Research and Information System in Delhi, which is the think tank of the government of India, and Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Indian Statistical Institute, Institute for Economic Growth. The list goes long. Some of them have even gone to LSE to do a summer course after their internship, even to IIM Ahmedabad and XLRI. On completion of MSc, our students can be very easily welcome, and they would fit into the PG, PhD program of SIU. What was very heartening, folks, was the success of the Wikipedia program, in which our students' projects were uploaded, they were accepted on Wikipedia. It became one of the innovative classes, one of your innovative evaluations that had taken place. And I think this Wikipedia pilot project failed at College of Engineering, but succeeded at Symbiosis International University's SSE. And I think the teachers and the students deserve a hand for that. Where do the students go for their summer and their exchange programs? Berlin School, Hanover, LSE. They come from Bremen, Berlin, Lebanese. What are we planning? We are hoping and planning towards a dual degree program with University College of London. We are already in talks with them, with Macquarie University, Maastricht University, and with Warsaw School of Economics. 2 of our students are scheduled to leave this coming academic year to do their economics. Mandar and Shreya, I can see both of you looking a little thrilled over there. Yes, we are hoping. And for this painstaking effort and connecting with all internationalization efforts, credit does go to Khushbu Thadani on this. When it comes to students' academic achievements, a big hand for Atul for being in the Prime Minister's. This young lad is surely inspiring. He's been with various ministries. He's from the first batch of MSc, and he has worked very closely with Rangarajan in the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. He's got papers which have been accepted at IIM Indore. He's gone to Christ University, and he's going to be presenting a paper at the OECD headquarters at Paris in July 2013. Atul, we are proud of you, and we look forward I look forward to future dates when some of you leave here and come back with your time, with your talent, and your treasure of knowledge to share with this batch of Symbiosis students whatever you have gained from here and what you take out from here. We would be very happy to welcome a lot of you back in due course. Okay, just a little slide to show you that he was at the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Sai Anurag went to SESM, the South Asia Economic Students Meet in Kathmandu. He represented our college. Saloni Srivastav's Applied Game Theory in Product Differentiation case of store brands versus national brands has been selected for issue to be released in December 2013, the European Journal of Operation Research. And of course, Mandar and Shreya are going to Warsaw. Ipshita and Zishan at the summer school. And though this is not an academic achievement, but I think I would really like to place on record the hard work put by Devika Rajiv and Varun Rao. I think you all know this was for Laissez-Faire 2013. And these students were really left to swim. They came up with a lovely model. And they came up with a model where they had an offbeat speaker and a mainstream speaker. They connected with everybody on Twitter, on Facebook, on whatever. And the 6 great personalities that they had for the fest was right from Dilip Padgaonkar, they had Devdutt Patnaik, they had Shubhada from Yes Bank, The Economist, and we had Vivek Daheja, who is a student of Jagdish Bhagwati. So they connected and they got this and they did this all on their own. Even the funding was done by themselves, We didn't give them a pie. So I think the students, you deserve a hand from the faculty to you, really. We began the activities of Symbiosis School of Economics with the induction program and with the experiences, the near-death experiences of Anita Murjani, who wrote the book, Dying to Be Me. And I think it was quite inspiring for everybody to hear about her experiences. We had Arun Jaitley for the Common Induction Program for this campus, where he came and talked about the role of the opposition in a parliament. And along with this, we have a Common Induction Program, which has the Law College, the Computer Science Institute, the Liberal Arts College, and the School of Economics. 4 institutions have a Common Induction Program. Over here, I'd like to make one pause when I see the photograph of Dr. Muzumdar. Today, the day looks a little incomplete without Dr. Muzumdar or Dr. Vidya being here. But it has been a very eventful week for them because their grandson, Dr. Muzumdar's grandson, got married a few days back, and today is the puja at home. Therefore, sir has excused himself from being present here. If we had postponed this, then we wouldn't have had Aru with us. So we had to make a certain choice. As we say, in economics, you have to make the choices. And here, it's a very difficult choice, but the management gave us a go-ahead and said, go ahead with this program, and we shall watch it on the video. And the whole program is being video recorded. We had Nirupam Bajpai of the Columbia Global Center come for the inaugural MSc lecture, and he spoke on the 20 years of reforms and where India needs to head in the next 20 years. Our book release, The Perspectives in Urban Development, at the hands of Chetan Vaidya and our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. Muzumdar, and Founder President of Symbiosis, along with our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Dr. Rajni Gupte. Along with the authors, we have this, all the authors made it to this program, which was very encouraging. The students also have a lot of industrial visits, village visits. They visited the Kirloskar Brothers factory, Kirloskar Pneumatics factory, and had a talk with the manager out there. We've had a social entrepreneurship workshop in which Mukund Devgankar, the co-founder and director of First Energy Private Limited, spoke about his initiatives. This was also with Anirudh Atre, who's the co-founder of Bottom of Pyramid Energy and Environmental Innovations. We had Malti Gadgil of Swachh. Her talk was truly inspiring for the MSc students because we felt that when students graduate from here, one of the options could be social entrepreneurship. And the students did find this workshop very, they did find it inspiring, and they did take their lessons home from there. We also had in this workshop, Chris Niddle, who spoke on South Asia's project, who's the South Asia project manager. He spoke about microfinance and rural energy sectors. We've had Priyadarshini Karve, with whom we've been having a very great association for the last 2 years, and she spoke on her alternative ARTI, the Institute for Rural Technology, Alternate Rural Technology Institute, where some of our students are even going to be interning with her. We had Yogesh Padgaonkar, the business head of global of Zensar, who came and spoke on the social entrepreneurship workshop, and of course Shumita Ghosh of Rangasutra, who had an interactive workshop with the students. The fest had Fanindra Sama, who features among the top 50 innovators, come in and discuss his success story with the students. So the opening theme for the fest was Fanindra Sama of Red Bus. We had Devdutt Patnaik and Shubhada Rao, and of course Vivek Deheja, we've talked about that. Moving from these activities, in the sports, I think it's one area where we need to get a little more active. And one way we keep the students active is that we don't allow them to use the elevator at Symbiosis. So we feel that if nothing else, they'll climb up and down, and that'll be some amount of physical activity. And occasionally we see them in the lift and we reprimand them. But though we have Kirtarat Singh for squash and Nisha Vernikar for the basketball team, they have represented SIU. We have a new breed of adventure sports which have started, and Shivangi and Abhay and Paresh, all right? Their little initiative led to forming of this adventure sport, which took them, which is something that SIU wants to take on a much larger scale. They've gone to Visapur, Gangbad, and Tung Fort, and this adventure sport every Sunday or every alternate Sunday under the guidance of Roy is something that the students are really working towards, and we're very happy to see this initiative coming from you, because initiatives coming from students are far more successful than when there's a gun put down to your head. The guest lectures we've been talking about, and we had Dr. Nachne give a series of lectures, Dr. Sita Prabhu, Dr. Siddharthan from Madras School of Economics speaking on innovation and technology, Mr. Sriraman, who is the microfinance authority in this part of the country, Ramnath Jha on urban governance, Pradeep Apte on WTO, and various other speakers who have come across the years. I may have missed out some of them. We have a number of workshops happening. 2 have happened and 2 will be happening. One is on urban dynamics which is going to happen around the 14th and 15th of March. And the other is 21st Century Politics and Implication for Trade, which is going to happen on the 23rd of March for the MSc students. These are things that are in the pipeline. Our faculty, while they are not in class, and sometimes you wonder, why you don't have lectures, and sometimes you get a little irritated, where are the faculty going? And now I'm going to dwell on what they do other than teaching you in class. They're under a lot of pressure, my dear friends. They go for a number of faculty development programs, workshops. We don't deny it to them because these opportunities are not going to come back. As you can see, if the average age of the teachers is high in Symbiosis, it's thanks to me. All right? Otherwise, everybody's pretty young out here. And therefore, whether it is research methodology, teaching pedagogy, SPSS classes, case study writing, SAS training, 3 of our faculty have gone for SAS training, and therefore they're not here today, or going for the Econometric Society meet in Delhi, or going for an audiovisual media as a tool for research at Delhi. There is something happening all the time. And so our faculty are very often away on duty. I'll now go across with the brief achievements of some of our faculty, because we have the students coming up with the students' achievements. Devika and Varun Rao will be speaking, but I'll speak very briefly about the faculty. Pallavi Takrai has been one of the senior-most faculties out here. She joined in 2010, and she teaches MSc and BSc. She teaches economic development and economic thought. She's very much into green environment and green buildings. And thanks to her, we've had a collaboration with India Green Buildings Council for research and other activities. She has presented a number of papers at IIT and at various national and international conferences. We have Shantanu Ray Chowdhury, who teaches trade and environment, development models, mathematical economics. He has presented papers again at national and international seminars, and his working paper is up on SSRN. He's also written 4 chapters or 6 chapters for a distance, Symbiosis Center distance learning for a book on macroeconomics. We have KK Roy. Each of our faculty have some aspirations, and KK Roy says, "Ma'am, mujhe microeconomics de do. I don't want any other paper. I want to write a textbook 10 years from now." So, respecting his views and giving people what they want to teach. He's been teaching microeconomics ever since he joined the institution in 2010 as a visiting faculty, then as a teaching assistant, and then as an assistant professor. His joint case study was approved and was put up in the Emerald Case Study Collection. And he is also faculty in charge of admissions and sports. We have Ishita Ghosh, who's away on SAS training. She teaches macroeconomics at the Masters, research methodology, international trade theory, and the economics journalism at BSc. She helped majorly with the editing of the book Perspectives in Urban Development, and has written one of the chapters in that book, and has even presented at the international conference her paper on FDI and retail in India, which was collaborated with Anushri Paul and Shukalpa Chakrabarti. Rachna, as you know, is on leave. She has gone to complete her PhD coursework. Some of the situations that you submit your PhD course, you probably give your viva, and then you'll have to do a PhD coursework, because these are certain things that you have to comply. So we've given her leave to finish her PhD coursework and come back. And she's going to very soon come back, not only with the PhD coursework completed, but come back as Dr. Rachna Shah. We are very happy to have her back soon. We have Dr. Minal Anachitre, who is with capital markets and finance and foreign capital. She teaches at the master's and the undergrad level. This meticulous and well-balanced teacher takes care of the examination department, and she's organized a number of guest lectures, and has even taken students for a visit to the dealing room, and has presented papers at national and international conferences. Dr. Shukalpa Chakrabarti, she is the International Relations and Public Policy teacher, and she organized a Model United Nations with TY students. She is writing a public policy column at the Diplomatist, a magazine which comes out regularly. She's going to be the columnist. I think she deserves a hand for this. Her work has been well received. She's an extremely active person for curricular, extracurricular, and co-curricular activities, writing papers and presenting papers, even organized a workshop on urban governance, and the forthcoming workshop on the 21st century geopolitics and implications for trade. She's not here today because she's rather unwell. Folks, I know how fond you are of Kalyan, and so am I. And so I must share this little story with you that when Kalyan came the other day and told me, you know, ma'am, he gave me a letter. And he said, you know, ma'am, I've got a scholarship. I've got an ICSSR fellowship. And I said, they gave it to you. So it's because when he gets his fellowship, you don't have him. So he goes ahead on research, so he's going to proceed on research. So in fact, I don't know whether Kalyan has come in. He generally surfaces. Kalyan, where are you? Can we have you in front? And you know, reading out his work would be ridiculous because you already know about it, and you've already given him the ovation that he knows. I mean, I've even told him that I'm just waiting for these 2 years of his research work to get over fast so that he can come back with, you know, with taking more responsibility on. And we're very happy that this young lad has impressed upon you so much with all his work and research. In fact, I must share with you that his work with his research work, Aro, on sex work and its linkages with informal labor markets in India. In fact, some of his work has been cited by judges in judgments, etc. And I think he deserves a big hand for that, folks. Okay, so this will go on. I'm going to email this presentation to all of you. You know, you make me feel very good with your, appreciating your faculty like this. When Amir Bazaz came to college to take for an interview at SIU, I was wondering what kind of an interview we're going to take of him because his biodata spoke so much about him. So when there was this faculty sitting in, he was sitting on the table and talking to them, you know. So there was a demo lecture that every faculty has to go through before coming in here. And then we sent him his letter of appointment, and each time he would keep deferring the date, you know. So then I asked him, I said, look, are you coming or are you not coming to SSC? So he says, no, ma'am, this is the last date that I'm going to push it away, you know. And so he's here with us, and it was after a lot of, okay, there were a lot of issues before he could come in because of personal issues, whatever, but we are so glad that he's been with us and relocated himself from Delhi to Pune. And he has his articles being published, and he's working on ongoing projects with Janavani, Parisar, CHF, PMC, and working with, setting up a social innovation lab at SSE. He was responsible for starting the social entrepreneurship workshop, which would result in this. I'm not going to go on to reading this because I'm sure we are wanting to hear what our this young faculty, when he would write mails to me, I judged him on his email writing abilities because everything was so, what did I do? Yeah, there it is. His email writing abilities are fantastic. I mean, he links up everything together. And I said, here is a man who has great systems, And when he came in, he's come from Calcutta. So, the Calcutta belt is very strong over here in symbiosis, all right? And I think credit goes to we Punekars, because Punekars won't go to Calcutta, but Calcutta will come to Pune, Am I right, Meenal? We are the Mumbaikars and the Marathi Manus out here, okay? So this is it, and he teaches econometrics, And right now, he's working majorly on a lot of, he's just joined us. And next year, you're probably going to see spate of publications coming out from him. He's going to be looking after the library, and I'm sure there's going to be great amount of inputs coming from him in that field. Khushbu Thadani teaches Indian economy, political economy of India. All right. She takes care of internationalization and the website, and that's something that, remember Khushbu, one of the things that we always kept telling you, look at the website of IIHS. All right, and I think I must tell you that we keep saying that the IIHS website is absolutely updated all the time. It's got whatever it is, and of course we are nowhere close to that, but at least there are certain benchmarks that we have led for ourselves. Ishita Ghoshal teaches macroeconomics. In fact, Aro, we have 100% UGC qualified faculty out here. And everybody is inspired to do their PhD, and there are a few of them, which I feel that they've come and they've learned, and we want them to be there. Because at the undergrad, they really do a very good job of it, and not necessarily that all PhDs make good teachers, but we are seeing our faculty really emerge as promising faculty in time to come, and that's where we are going to take inputs from you. We have Anushri Paul, and we are very happy to have her back with us, and she is going to be teaching at the master's level, and going to be taking into account a lot of the quant aspects at the undergrad and the master's, and Anushri is going to look into a lot of project work for SSE as time goes by. We have Suchi Mishra, who's not here, but she's a research associate, and she's going to work on labor economics. She's got a number of her articles already published. She's right now in Noida with the NSSO camp for data crunching, and therefore she's not with us today. We have Dipanshu Mohan, okay, and he is working on, he's taking up two courses, Indian Public Finance and Indian Planning Processes and Strategies. And within the short span, his exposure at LSE made him do a lot of work in the research area before he's joined us out here. Now, folks, before I move to the last part of my presentation, we are sitting here in front of you with a lot of work which goes behind the scenes. And here I'll pause to say a big thank you to Debashri Bhagwat, our office superintendent, because she doesn't pass any paper without, any financial paper doesn't go without her scrutiny, and she has got a keen and a great eye for this. When the finances of an institution are secure, you feel great. You have Simi and Deepali and Sarika. Where are you all? Are you all there? Deepashri and Simi and Sarika, are you all there? Yeah? Okay. They take care of a lot of the back office academic program work, and without their inputs, calculating your marks at times, calculating your attendance, looking at the TNG, all the terms that you don't like, looking at the year down that is granted, all right? They do all this, telling us about the faculty who are not taking classes, seeing how it can be reorganized. They do a tough job. And then there is Namrata, there are two Namratas, both of them do a good job. Namrata keeps me on my toes, and I keep her on her toes. And yes, she's there smiling. And we have Anagha, who's, as I call, the least khadus accountant, because I tell her, Anagha, don't pass papers, but she's always smiling. Acha, ma'am, we will clear this check. I said, no, just make sure it needs to be cleared. But she's a very good-natured person. We have a lot to learn from all of them. And Satish, and Pawar, and Vijay, and Praful. I think our back office, we owe it. If I have forgotten anybody's name, it's not intentional. The disclaimer that I am human, but then I know you're going to say, ma'am, what is this? And then we come down to our faculty profile, and you know that there are 7 faculty with a PhD, 2 have submitted. I think they should get it in the next 2-3 months. The wait is long for them. They waited for more than 1 year to get their PhD after it's been submitted. Pursuing MPhil, teaching assistant, research associate, and we are hoping to appoint 2 more faculty this year. And then, you know, you always leave the best for the last. All right? Yeah? You know, it's, give him a standing ovation. Let's give him the bouquet. You know, this quiet IITian who speaks so little, mathematician who, you know, everything just is one number, you know, which is the solution, whereas we social scientists write statements. A member of Mensa International works silently behind the scenes, meticulous and thinking, giving me the academic calendar, the examination schedules with a keen eye for detail. Give him a paper and he'll show you what are the mistakes. He'll tell you exactly what is wrong. So we love, you know, whenever your projects come in, we are going to give it to him, you know, because he's going to really, we say, you know, Amir tells him, Rudra sir, ye cheer paar ke wapas de dena humko, you know. So Rudra, this is a warm thank you for all your support to the institution and to me, because you made my job of an advisor very easy. I thank you for it. And this was my quote last year, that don't judge each day by the harvest you reap. We have already sowed the seeds. The plant is growing slowly. We are moving in a right direction. But the goalpost is going to keep going further and further away, because we're not going to let the goalpost be there. And then this is a day today to acknowledge and celebrate. And therefore, I found this great words by Dwight Friend, who says acknowledgement and celebration are essential to fueling passion, making people feel valid and valuable. I think we've done that successfully. And giving the team a real sense of progress that makes it all worthwhile. This year was really worthwhile, folks. Probably one of the hardest and toughest years for me, but the most satisfying here today, especially when I made this report. This report is a synopsis. When I make the complete report, I will send it to all you students to know what all goes behind the scenes. Maybe that's when you would be able to condone our little misses, where we have not come up to your expectation at some times, and share with us where you feel we can reach up to that level. On this ground, all I have to say is a big thank you to you all.
Okay, I really liked the look on Rudra sir's face when he was receiving the bouquet. I think he was not expecting that. We now move to releasing our journal, O Economic Scriptus. It would be a pleasure if we can have the dignitaries just releasing the journal. A round of applause for... Thank you, ma'am. I would now like to ask the Student Council representatives to please come down and give the Student Council report for the year. Thank you.
A very good morning to everyone here. We are here to deliver the annual Student Council report for the academic year 2012-2013.
The academic year witnessed a large number of activities and achievements, ranging from academics to literature and cultural activities. SSC organized its first ever Ethnic Day as a part of the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations, which was an intra-college cultural event which included inter-batch dancing and singing competitions.
We also recently organized our second annual Intercollegiate Fest, Laser Fair 2013, which was a huge success. Laser Fair was an economic fest that witnessed participation from college students from across the country and industry and academic professionals. We had an excellent mix of economic and offbeat speakers spread over the 3 days, along with events that witnessed student participation.
We now move on to the club activities that have taken place during the year. Raga, the music club. Raga has organized an intra-batch Antakshari competitions, of which the winners were the third years. We've also organized an intra-college music competition as part of the Ethnic Day. Music club members have participated in various fests in and around Pune, like Simpulse, Unify, Simbhav, etc.
Sabujan, the Environment Club, had a fairly active year in terms of activities and participation. A couple of events and awareness sessions were spread out during 2012-2013, with participation from all the batches. The activities organized by Sabujan included a cleanup drive on the Symbiosis Hill, an awareness drive about eco-friendly immersions during the Ganesh Chaturthi, and a collaboration with Swachh during Laser Fair 2013. Samarpan, the social service club, collaborated with Santulan, an NGO, and had a Diwali stall put up for the students and staff of Symbiosis. The aim of setting up this stall was to collect enough funds for Santulan to set up a new base for treatment for the drug addicts that the NGO treats. The diyas sold were made and painted by the addicts themselves, and the homemade chocolates were made by the volunteers. The volunteers were extremely happy with the response and invited the students of SSE to come and join the team for further such events.
THAP, the choreography club. The choreography club has organized an intra-college dance competition on the Ethnic Days, the winners which again were the third years. The dance club members have participated in various fests like the Simpulse, Unify, Laser Fair, SSC, and also participated in the Symbiosis Society dance competition.
The Documentary Screening Board is an initiative that aims to bring about a social, political, and economic awareness through the screening of some quality movies and documentaries. The DSB has screened a lot of documentaries which usually happened on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. The documentaries screened, to name a few, are Nero's Guest, Wall Street, Parts 1 and 2, The Inside Job, Super Size Me, and Dharavi.
Let There Be Lit, our literature club. This club has organized an intra-batch slogan competition titled the Slogan Slingers, organized a poster-making competition. Members of the club has participated in literary events in Malhar and Mood Indigo. Special mention to Devduti Nag, who won second place in Jam in Simpulse, the fest of SAMS UG. Coming into Piclic, the photography club, it is one of the most popular clubs at SSC. Our shutterbugs have participated and won in many competitions throughout the year. Anushika Benazir of third year has won first prize in the photography competition of Unify, a fest for the SICSR college. Anushika has also come third in the photography competition of Simba, the SLS Fest. Utsav Nath of TY has won first prize in short film event of the Troika, a BMCC Fest. Aman Chala, Zarina Sani, Shomo Guha, and Niyatri Malhotra have won second prize for the photo hunt organized by the Rotary Club of Kalyani Nagar. Another special mention to Utsav Nath of the third year because his photographs were selected for an exhibition in the Nehru Art Gallery in Raipur.
SSE Rangers, the Adventure Club, is the most dynamic student club of the college, which organizes adventure sport activities such as trekking, overnight camping, long-distance cycling, and rafting. In the current semester, they have undertaken 7 college treks, 1 overnight camp, and several cycling trips involving participation of students from all the batches. A team from Symbiosis School of Economics consisting of Shering Bhutia, Abhay Krishna, and Shivang Sharma participated in Enduro 3. This is an adventure race involving trekking, cycling, river crossing, and rappelling, which takes place every year in the Western Ghats. It is the only event of its kind in India with over 2,500 participants. This 150-kilometer race was completed by them in 25 hours and 23 minutes.
The Theatron Club. The Theatron Club is one of the most active clubs within SSE. They have made many short films throughout the year and also participated in fests such as Malhar. To name a few of their short films are Her. It was directed by Devduti Nag, and the actors were Rajoshi Gangli and Ritika Gupta. Another short film made for the Simpulse Fest titled Chimera was again directed by Devduti Nag and Rajoshi Gangli, and acted were Sarthak Matu, Upasana Vasant, and Alankrita. The Theatron Club has successfully organized Bollywood Fiesta, a mix of quiz and dumb charades based on the theme Bollywood in college. Devduti Nag, the club head in fact, was selected for the lead role in an independent short film titled Koshish by SIMC PG. The members of the club also put up plays in classes as part of their assignments. The club has also been successful in organizing the short film-making event Real Life in Laser Fair 2013. Chimera was also screened during this event, and it received positive reviews and appreciation by the judges and the audiences. Moving on to Arthniti, the Economic Journalism Club. The Arthniti Club has a very eventful year with a large number of enthusiastic members. With the first years coming in, the club transformed itself from being just an economic journalism club to all-out economic forum. Once the academic year began and we were introduced to our freshers, we introduced them to Arthniti. As a result, we pulled off the extremely successful mock panel discussion held during Laser Fair. Furthermore, the active and enthusiastic members have come together and contributed a total sum of 25 comprehensive articles on almost every aspect relating to economics, be it price discrimination or even personal decisions like marriage and dating. These articles are going to be published on the annual Economic Journal.
We would now like to highlight some of the individual achievements of our students. Saloni Srivastava's paper on applied game theory in product differentiation, case of store brands versus national brands, got selected for the European Journal of Operations Research. 3 short stories of Nirupama Sudarsh have got published in the following literary magazines this year: Indus Woman Writing, Spark, and E-Fiction India. Shomo Guha won the first position in group discussion event at BMCC's Fest Troika, and his name was also mentioned in the report prepared under the R.K. Lakshman Chair initiatives of the RTI workshop.
Shiva Sharan of the third year was selected as Speaker of the Lok Sabha at Simbhav Mock Parliament 2013. He was selected as Chairperson of the General Assembly at the Manipal MUN organized by Manipal University. Shiva was also selected as Vice President Security Council at NLS MUN 2012, organized by National Law School, Bangalore. Anshal Madnani and Aman Rai of the second years won the first position in Symbiosis Stock Exchange event organized by Symbiosis School of Banking Management at Sinopia 2013. Abhay Krishna of second year successfully completed the basic mountaineer course organized by the Himalayan Mountaineering Institute and was awarded with an A grade. He also completed basic snow skiing course by the Indian Institute of Skiing and Mountaineering in Gulmarg, Jammu and Kashmir. He was awarded for an A for this too.
Divya Tejwani successfully completed the New York Salsa certification course at Mridang Academy of Excellence for Creative Arts. Swapna Joshi participated in the national level debate competition Udbhav, conducted by GB Pant University of Agriculture and Technology in Uttarakhand. She was awarded the best speaker.
Prerna Deshpande of third year was selected for an international summer school program at the Berlin School of Economics and Law in June 2012. She was awarded an overall A grade. Shauradeep Ghosh, another TY, his photos got selected as honorable mention in photo contest for the theme Nature. More than 4,500 photos were submitted from all around the globe. Sharik Sabha of FY is all set to publish a poetry book titled The Subdued Sound. The book is scheduled to release on the 25th of March 2013 by Rochak Publishers.
This brings us to an end of a shortened list of individual achievements of our students. Both Devika and I are honored to have had the opportunity to head the Student Council this year. We would like to take this opportunity to thank Jyoti ma'am, the faculty members, the Student Council representatives, and the entire student body for their support throughout the year. We hope we have delivered to the best of our potentials. Thank you.
I would now like to request Professor Ravi to please address the students.
I'm not going to try and bore you very much, but I thought, as they bring this up, we can start a conversation. How much time do I have roughly? Okay, well, I'm not going to try and bore you very much then if I don't have to worry about time. But yeah, while you're setting up, you know, as we build up this conversation, I'm going to maybe ask you a few questions. And if there's a mic around, oops, hello, yeah. Feel free to ask me questions because I'm going to show you a few things, some of which will be new, some of which may be old hat, but getting an engagement on key things may be interesting. I guess the first question I'll ask you, maybe a trick question, how many of you are not on Facebook? Oh, okay, that's interesting. How many of you are on LinkedIn? Okay, that's good. Why have you, I mean, why are the people who are not on LinkedIn not on LinkedIn? Or what does LinkedIn bring you? Yeah, I need a mic somewhere. If we can take a mic down?
Yeah,
great. Anybody wants to stand up and, you know, they're setting up, so I'm filibustering at the moment.
Which is the file?
Yeah. So, anybody wants to sort of come back on why you're not on LinkedIn and what's the value of being on LinkedIn? Or the other way around, somebody who's on LinkedIn, what's the value of being there? The file, well, you have to get the drive up. No, that's the wrong, you've got the wrong file. So this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, anybody's on LinkedIn? Feedback on why, what's so cool about LinkedIn or what's?
It allows you to build up a professional network and also maintain it throughout the time being, because you're right from your school days, you're meeting people, you're trying to network with them, you try to find out where they're working, what they're working with. So that kind of network is helpful. Plus you get endorsements or recommendations. You know, anyone who just, it's your profile, your professional profile online. So especially the recommendation part is something I find very useful.
Okay, that's good. That's, you know, it's a good idea since many of you are going to be professional economists, so work in that area. I'm not making a plug for LinkedIn, but I'm just saying it's a good thing for you. As I've seen the stuff that you guys are doing, you know, you're producing a student journal. This is not something that's very common. Your faculty is encouraging you to write and do really good things. One of the things that's important to do is to get out and show what this world is, what this work is like to the rest of the world. So LinkedIn is a good way of doing that. It's a good way of reaching out to people. And as you build out your professional network, you'll start learning a whole range of things about how economics works itself, or how the particular specializations that you have work themselves out. So the third part, pretty much almost on here. How many of you are on Twitter? Okay. It might be a good idea, and I don't know whether I have the web up there. It might be a good idea for more of you to get on Twitter. For the very simple reason that I sent out 2 tweets today. One tweet links onto my presentation, and the second tweet actually has all of you on it. Does that make any sense? It does. Why does that make sense? Exactly. So how many of you have got smartphones that work here? Great. So why don't you try and see whether you can find, my Twitter handle should be coming out. It's my name. It's @Aromer Ravi, and there are 2 tweets there from this morning. So you know, you think this is or sort of or not? The thing that I'm trying to point out to you is, as we reach out to a much more networked world, there are new ways of learning and engaging with challenges and questions. And if you embrace them, and it's sort of very easy for you to do that. I learned this stuff, you know, the hard way. You guys were born. It's an important thing to stay networked. Fine. The reason that I tweeted is easy for me to sort of, you know, run through a presentation and put it up. Web, you not only have access to something when I teach, and that, and we want people to go. Fine. So then the process of learning happens simultaneously. So let's say, thought experiment, if we had 2 screens, I have a presentation running here, and I had a Twitter screen coming up on the other. or I had my LinkedIn account, which my Twitter feed is linked to, you could actually comment on it, and I could speak to you at the same time and talk to a much larger number of you at the same time. So anyway, yeah. Do you have a ClickUp with you?
Yeah.
Okay, great, fantastic, good. So this is easy and simple to deal with. So as you can see here, my Twitter handle is up there, and as I said, if the world, and the next time you do this, when I'm back here or whoever it is, if you have two screens, we could really have a live conversation with a large number of you at the same point of time. Fine. It doesn't cost anything. It just needs two projectors. It's very simple to do. But the whole thing about teaching and learning is that I'm learning from you as much as you might be learning from me. And especially if that feedback happens simultaneously, and that's what sort of a lot of interdisciplinary work is all about, it helps us learn much more effectively at the same time. So first question, do you know where this is from, this image? Any guesses? Just shout. Delhi where? Jama Masjid. Okay. So what's so special about this image of Jama Masjid? Is there anything special at all? You have to shout, or at least So this is a minaret, fine. You know when Jama Masjid was built, roughly? Yeah, mid-late 16th century, fine. So when actually there's a whole history of this. Shah Jahan actually climbed up on this, and he used to use this to be able to look around. The question, of course, was when Shah Jahan came up there, would he have ever imagined that would happen to a world city? This was a world city of its time. It was one of the greatest cities of its time. It was very rich. It was the heart of a very important empire. The question, of course, is this is the law of unintended consequences. Okay, and a lot of the work that we'll be doing in over the next many years is going to be dealing with a whole range of unintended consequences of our action. So another question, I guess you guys should have this answer pat. What is India's sort of rough, just came out a few days back, current GDP like? 1.9 trillion. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, okay, roughly around 1.9 trillion. Fine. How much of that comes from urban areas? How much of that comes from urban areas? Any guesses? No faculty members to answer that. Yeah, I mean actually I should carry a mic around now and become like because people have been very quiet. Okay, you've got a mic there. So let me try. It's going to be difficult for the camera person, but let's try from the back here. Okay, what's the proportion of guess? What's the proportion of India's GDP that comes from urban areas? Guess. Okay, that's a little bit over. Yes, it's closer to 60. Yeah, it's roughly 60%. So what is 60% of 1.9 billion? Yeah, 1.2 trillion. Great. So that's the scale of, if you want to become an urban economist, that's the scale of the system that you're actually dealing with. Fine. So what is your estimate of the growth rates of urban India compared to rural India? Trick Agagon question. Some guesstimates. So over the last decade or so, what's the sort of median growth rate that we've had? We're doing very badly this year, but over the last year, try. It's guess. 6-7%. Great. So at 6-7%, how quickly do you double the economic? Any guesses here? How many years does it take to double at 6% growth? Any guesses here? At 6% growth, how long does it take to double? Why? Yes. So who's really good at compound interest calculations here? Or somebody knows a little trick of figuring out how you figure out doubling times? Yes, that's the equation. But give me a sense. You know one thing that we need to do when we get to know numbers is get a sense of the scale that we're working with. So 6% will give you 72 by 6. Somebody knows that old trick? Yeah? Yes, exactly. So if you're doing 6-7%, you have a doubling at anywhere between, let's say, 10 to 12 years, fine? So India's urban economy is going to go from about 1.1, 1.2 trillion dollars to about 2.4 trillion dollars. in the time that you guys get out of this place, especially the undergraduates, and get a job and work there for 4 or 5 years. Fine? Is that a small thing or a big thing? Why is it a big thing? Yeah.
We're talking about huge scale out here. We are like a 1.3 billion highly populated economy, so it's a huge scale, and it's not like on a small scale. That's why it's massive.
So just to give you a sense of how the changes have taken place, you know, Maharashtra's economy today, Maharashtra is one of our biggest states in terms of economic output, is roughly equal to India's GDP when the reform started 20 years ago. Okay, just to give you that sense of scale. So so there's one state of this country today was equal to all of what India was in terms of output when I guess some of you were sort of born. Okay, so we're going through a process of very, very dramatic change where things are scaling and changing very, very quickly, and I think it's important for you to understand that, especially as economists, because if you don't get a sense of that scale of change and where the structure is working itself out, you might be missing the plot. Got it? So we've got an economic engine, so to speak, that's at 1.2 trillion. It's going to go to 2.4, fine, and then hopefully if we're able to maintain that rate of growth, which we may not be able to because of a whole range of questions that I'll show you, you might go then to about 4.8 or 5, fine, and all this will happen as you are building up. You'll become mid-career in 20 years time, fine, and then, you know, in another 10 years time you'll become an old person like some of us here. But over that period of time, India's economy should grow by about 4 to 5 times, and it's unbelievable the scale of change that we will expect to see. Yeah, so that's an important thing to understand. But there are some other interesting things that I'll show you. So if I were to change slides, whoops, clicker doesn't work here. Maybe, yeah, okay. The interesting thing, of course, is India is a very exceptional place, and you know, this photograph was actually taken from that minaret, and that's the reason why. So it's a self-referral photograph. What does it show you? Shows you Lal Killa, of course, fine. But what's so special? People look at it and often say that this is a trick photograph. It's actually a real photograph taken exactly from that minaret. What does it show you? It shows you 3 or 4 things. It shows you India's pre-colonial past, okay, when this used to be a world city. It also shows you hidden in the, oops, it also shows you hidden in the background. Yes, those are heritage buildings now. That's part of the National War Museum there. We can't take them down because they're heritage buildings, but that's the colonial period. And then you have the metro sitting there. So that's post-colonial India, which is what some of us are part of. Fine. The challenge of working in this country is, and you very much find this exactly same situation in Pune, and so it's true of most of our older urban centers, is all of these things subsist at the same time. So at one end you have this massive change in population growth. We're going to touch 1.5, 1.6 billion. You also have this massive change in terms of, you know, economic growth happening at the same time with some inequity growing, but they persist in a cultural and social environment that is very different to many other parts of the world. And that's why and other people here are trying to do is very important, because we have to build an understanding of how all these processes work in this environment. The theory that we work from very often developed, let's say, in what I call North Atlantic cultures, in let's say Europe and the United States and other places like that, does not match the reality here. So over the next many years, and this has started happening, let's say maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, we're actually going to build a new theory of how this system works and how it performs. And that's going to change the way economics develops, the way that economics is practiced, and the way that a whole range of other things happen. But the interesting thing that you don't see in this photograph, and frankly, you know, even the Prime Minister, when he or she stands here, doesn't see, and that's why India is very, very, very different, is there's something else which I put at the end, the last slide there. There is something the Prime Minister doesn't see because he or she is facing outwards from Lal Killa, and what they don't see is this. In between, to go back to the earlier image, in between the pre-colonial the colonial and the post-colonial in this riverbed here was one of India's, or at least Delhi's, largest informal settlements. Fine. This is what it was like in 2003, about 10 years ago. It was a very active place. Okay, almost 250,000 people lived there. This is how it looked. You can see the old bridge that's sitting here. The British built it as they were coming in and built the railway that was there. And then something happened. It was demolished in 2004. Okay, it was erased from the map. Almost 2.5 lakh people were pushed out of this place under court orders. Fine. Yeah. What does that tell you about the kind of society that we are? What does it tell you about the economic forces that are happening? Now, there was a very interesting reason why they were pushed out. They were pushed out because this is how it was. This is a Google image from that period of time. Google is interesting for that. Huh? You can see how dense it is. This is how people actually live and survive and work in this country. It had been there for 2 or 3 generations. It was removed because a bypass had to be built for athletes for the Commonwealth Games to travel between one stadium and the other 10 minutes faster than they would if they took the main road. Okay. This is something that makes us a completely different culture and society. It is dealing with these questions of equity, inequity, informality that we have to address. And that is the reason why we have to both build theory and practice that is different from what comes from other parts of the country. These are the real problems that you deal with when you are actually working as an administrator, as an economist, as a development practitioner, or even a judge in this particular case. So this was an informal settlement, it was illegal, so we erased it off the map. You can see it, yeah? Look at the difference there, that's what it was, okay, and that's what it became. But what it means is, in some cases, 2 generations of people, their entire surplus value and savings were wiped out and they were displaced to the periphery of the city. Fine. So there are a whole range of questions, some political, some social, etc., about the equity of doing this and whether this is right or wrong. But it's important to understand that in our environments, all of these things are happening at the same time. The growth that I talked about, this 1.2 trillion going to 2.4, etc., which sounds very nice, actually implies that this kind of processes can also happen. And in fact, this may become the dominant way of engagement that enables us to get the kind of growth and the kind of development that we have. So this is the evidence, because you're economists, you work with numbers and a whole range of other things. This is the evidence not of 1 year, but this is a long time series from 1990 to 2007 of the numbers of people who were relocated year on year. And of course, some of you sort of may, the emergency is myth, yeah. But those of us who were there and seen it, there was a massive demolition that took place somewhere down here, 1975, in Turkman Gate, which there's some films being made about it just now because it's become part of history, which did pretty much the same thing. So this is something that's not a flash in the pan. This is part of a systematic process of how we develop and manage our built environments and our cities. So that's the secular trend there, right? You want to look at it spatially, this is how it looks. So this is just one, what you're seeing just now, this is just one eviction over a period of about 30 or 40 years. So what I'm saying is, our economic systems, our urban fabrics, the way that we live and organize, the kind of things that we do research on, are defined by a whole range of things that we do not necessarily see. Right? So let me give you another number. The people who were demolished, the people who lived here, or whose houses are being torn down, they produce some guess, and we talked about this a little earlier with faculty. Some estimates of how much poor people or the urban informal sector actually produces in this country. I mean, some sense of how much proportion of India's GDP comes from urban areas. We said about 60%. How much of that comes from poor people or people who live in the informal sector? Any guesses? Sorry, I heard something there. Anybody wants to take a call on that? I mean, these are not trick questions. These are things that we should sort of know. We don't necessarily know. Anyone want to take a call here? Yes? Sorry? 40-50% of GDP?
Yeah, if you're just talking about the urban area, the poor, coming from the poor.
Okay, so we said 60% of India's GDP comes from urban areas, and 40% of that comes from the poor. Actually, the number is a little bit higher than that. So let me give you give you a little sense. So if you look at India's employment structure, about 5% of the employment in the country is in the urban formal sector, okay, in the places that many of us would like to get jobs, in transnationals, in the banking sector, with organized things like the Reserve Bank of India, with government, and a whole range of other things. That's about 5% of jobs. I'm giving you rough numbers, fine, just to give you a sense of scale. That the urban formal sector produces about 25% of India's GDP. Cool. The urban informal sector, which makes up about 25% of India's employment, so roughly, 70-30, I'm giving you rough numbers, also produces 25% of India's GDP. Okay, so there are about 120 million jobs odd in the urban informal sector, and they produce 1/4 of that $1.9 trillion. Now this is, I mean, in a sense, if we had a good course in urban economics, you would have had this on your fingertips. This is something that's really shocking to us, because we do not expect that people who drive rickshaws, people who sell stuff on the footpath, etc., collectively could, we just cannot believe that they could collectively produce so much of what this country is all about. And of course, the corollary to that question is, when they produce savings and they put savings into the houses like this, if you destroy that, what the impact would be like on the country, and of course, obviously on people who don't really have very much, who are sort of close to the calorie poverty line or otherwise. This is something that we really have to think about very carefully, and I think what good economists are able to do, and this goes back of course to Engels and his work on Manchester and stuff like that, is to look at the reality that we have and try and understand the numbers that are produced by a whole range of agencies and ourselves, whether it's the NSSO or it is the RBI or the economic survey, fine. These things relate to stuff in reality. We have been trained since childhood not to see them, but it's very important to understand where they are, because if you don't understand where they are, you'll be like anybody else. And once you understand where they are, you have to take some very determined choices of where you fit in this system and what you would like to do. It's a difficult thing, and people accuse me a lot of making people uncomfortable and speaking very bluntly, but once you know, then that choice is much easier than if you didn't know that this is actually true. So basically, we have been systematically destroying value of people who spend their lives working really, really hard to add value in really difficult circumstances. So if some of you had the opportunity to read my lead article in the latest India Today version, that's exactly the point that I'm saying. Why has this happened? Why is urban India growing at 6.5–7%? It is growing that way because a lot of poor people are working exceedingly hard. They work 12, 15, 16 hours a day. They're immensely productive with very, very little input, with terrible living conditions. That's the primary reason that's happening. So in a sense, and this is a picture of what Chandni Chowk has become. Yeah, you can see that. You don't have to say anything. All of us have experiences. You go to the old parts of the city, you can see that also. These are tremendously dense places that produce a tremendous amount of value, but in a different way, because surplus value is coming here from labor and labor productivity, not necessarily from capital, than what we actually see. But because we are a country of 1.2, almost 1.3, going to 1.5 billion people, our future depends on the lives of each one of us and the way that our cities will work itself out. So when we are talking about this big change that we'll see as India grows the way it will probably, etc., what are the 4 or 5 really, really important? The first thing is, we have to end poverty. It is impossible for us, at least in my own appreciation, I've worked across pretty much every state in this country, whatever, almost 100 cities. It is not socially possible for us to continue for at least another generation of the kind of grinding poverty that we have. This system and this country will break down if that continues. Because, very simply, now, so many of us have cell phones, so many of us know exactly what we're dealing with. You can be sitting here and your family may be sitting in North Bihar. Do you know exactly what is happening? People know that there is something that is changing and growing, that some parts of urban India are growing at remarkable rates, that you can have houses that cost $1 billion be located in some cities, while other people don't have enough to eat. So we have to address the question of poverty and also the question of inequality, which is different, as you know. I guess you understand FGD 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. Poverty and inequality are not necessarily the same thing. We have to address that. That's a non-negotiable. And if we're not able to address that in our generation, your lives are going to be really tough. We can't run away from that. The second thing is, to do that, the growth is important, because the growth gives you the space, then maybe reinvest or to transfer, and this is a big policy question at the current point of time. It's going to be tested in the next election. But the critical thing in that is that growth has to be inclusive. And what we've seen over the last 10 years or so in many dimensions, multi-dimensional, I saw somebody here sort of writing about that, is that it's not necessarily been inclusive because of the way things are structured and it goes. But the change that's happening in this country, and I can say this from a little bit of experience, not the growth story. And we only talk about the really important thing is actually the social transformation story. And people talk about this very much here, but for me that's probably the most important thing. And one indicator of that is I see a largely gender balanced sort of classroom here, or a gender balanced environment. That's the fundamental change that's happening. So for me, when I'm looking at an indicator of what has changed in India over the last 20 or 30 years, the thing that I say is, from the 80s now, if you go to whatever with the Chief Minister about 2-3 weeks back, going from Patna to somewhere else, it is young girls cycling to school. I mean, that's just one indicator of that process. This is the deep underlying change that will drive economic growth. Economic growth without social transformation does not work. It leads to greater inequity. And because we are a highly stratified society, I mean, we know that in our social relations and who we eat and dine with and who we marry and stuff like that. This is a thing that's going to either make or break this republic. Whether we're able to allow people with different backgrounds, different castes, communities, ethnicities, to be able to share in the benefits of prosperity is going to be absolutely critical for us. Now, that may sound very nice, but we have a minor problem. We're a small country with lots of people inside it. We have a severe crunch as far as resources are concerned. And the way that our cities are growing will ensure that we're going to have serious conflict. You can see that here. The city is starved of water. The city that I spend a lot of my time in, Bangalore, has no more water legally available. After the Kaveri Tribunal has provided its award, there is no more water for a city that is actually driving India's IT growth. So environmental sustainability is absolutely critical. And this is a hard question, because environmental economics, I saw the birth of that, let's say in the late 70s and 80s, when some of us were working on this question, is a new discipline. And we have not integrated that into our decision making adequately. And then finally, of course, to make all of this possible, we need a unified and a stable polity. Political systems have to enable us to be able to make all of this possible. And that will only happen if each one of us as citizens, as people who are conscious of what is happening, actually stand up and say, look, I like this stuff. I need this to change. I'm going to put my own part of my life and other such things on the line to make this happen. And we've seen that happening. And that's why I started very consciously with, do you have Facebook? Do you have Twitter? And are you on LinkedIn? Because if you've seen what's happened in the world over the last 2.5 years or so since Arab Spring, I'm saying that way because it's kind of a country. People are standing up and saying that they want to be counted in making a change and deciding how things will happen. However, once you see the implications of that are that you must know what the reality around you is. And once you know what the reality around you is, and you're not shut as we typically do, looking at poverty, inequality, and all things, apart from the growth and the nice jobs that we will get, choices. And those choices are very critical to us to see what's happening. So, what is the context in which we live? Fine, this is sort of, I'll do this very, very quickly. I guess some of you know Madison's work. So this comes from a paper that I wrote maybe, whatever, 7, 8, 10 years ago. You may not be able to see it very well at the back, but I'll show you what this is. This is global market share. This is a global output, fine, proportion of global output. And this is time, from the 16th century to now. We're somewhere here at the moment, fine. This is a long range trend of global economic history. So what do you see? You see at the time of whatever, you know, that's where Shah Jahan built Shah Jahanabad. I mean, Jama Masjid comes from that time. At that time, roughly at that time, in fact, Aurangzeb died somewhere here, India and China made up about 45% of global economic output. We were the superpowers at that time. That's why everybody came to, you know, India, etc., etc. China actually grew in market share, and as the Mughal Empire declined, we lost market share or share of global output. Fine. So this is the whole history of colonization. It took us about you know, whatever it is, almost 200 years to reach about 4-5%. That's where we were at independence. China had a much more precipitous decline in its engagement with the Western powers. Fine. And then you see the rise of Britain. Fine. Peaking out before the end. Those of you who have seen Lincoln. Fine. Before the end of the 19th century. I mean, you know, you have to sort of understand a little bit of economic history. So when Victoria was ruling the world, they were not the largest economic power. The United States had crossed them after the Civil War because of the energy that was created after the end of slavery. Of course, the US becomes the largest power in the mid 20th century, and then of course this is a dot-com boom and bust at that point of time. But the most important thing in these series of graphs is not the up and down and the end of colonial development. And then you see this is Russia, that is what happened to them in Afghanistan. So, you know, history and economics do speak to each other. The most important thing is two things. If you look at these two lines, it is a rebound of China, and lagged by about 20 years, it's a rebound of India over the early part of this century. This is going to be part of your lives. This is a history that's going to be built. Some of this dynamics is sort of endogenous. You can't actually change that. Fine. So what we know is China is now the second largest economy in the world. It's a question of time now before they overtake the United States. Okay. So if you look at the long sweep of history, you're actually situating yourselves and your lives in a very, very important time. So Asia basically returns to the center of the global economy after a gap of 250 years. Fine. Now, one of the key drivers to that is the process of urbanization. So one of the obvious things when you look at the world today is, if you urbanize, you tend to have higher GDP per capita, and you see what's happening. Now, is that happening everywhere in the world? Well, yes and no. That's the satellite map of the world, but I tend to do something a little bit different. I look at the world a little bit differently. So I put it sort of upside down. Huh? We're not used to looking at things differently. And why do I put it upside down? Because when you do that, and it's upside down from a particular frame of reference, fine, you can change the north to the south, it doesn't make. It's because of this. The center of the world system between the 16th and the 18th century was in Asia. Fine. Then what happened? We had colonial development. Whoops, I lost that. The center of the world economy over the 19th and 20th centuries was over the North Atlantic. That's where the First and Second World Wars were fought. Fine. So the geography changed. We often, and I don't know how well you teach it, economic geography has some value. And then what happened? In the late 20th century, you saw the Americans getting very, very worried about the Japanese and a whole range of things. The basin shifted from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Fine. And what's going to happen now? It's going to shift back to what we call the Indian Ocean Pacific Basin. So after a gap of 250 years, it's not only that Asia is returning, so the geography, what's happening is actually going to change. So all these little dots that you see here, okay, are going to be the center of the new world economy. Fine. And that's really important to understand. So those of you who want to sort of make and chase your way across here, this is a dying economic culture. Okay. I know it's a nice place, and most good economists are still trained in the United States, especially if they want to get their PhD. But if you want to look at world economic history, this is absolutely happening at the current point of time. Fine, and I can say that because I've taught in 5 continents across the world, including some of the best places that you see on. This is something that one must understand. And what is driving that? What is driving that is the location of organized. If you understand that, you understand the big picture. And like I said, you know, this is sort of an ode to innocence. It might make your choices a little bit different. So basically, new geographies will make new 21st century histories. So the choice of where you're going to be located and what you want to do is actually going to change the way the world works, and it's going to change your own lives and the choices that you made. Fine. But there are some serious constraints. Okay. the big challenge of this century is what we call the sustainability transition. Okay, so if you look at current resource usage, and if I'm boring you, you can ask me to shut up or you can ask me a question. That's both work well. At current throughputs, we require about 2 times what ecological services can provide. I mean, what let's say the Earth system can provide. Our current consumption levels are about twice what we have. As the primary place that's going to grow in terms of population, followed by Africa, population growth needs about 1.5 times our current ecological output. And then of course, we have a minor problem, which I said, boundary condition. We have to end poverty in the next 20 or 30 years. To end poverty, you need another 2 worlds of output, fine? Food, water, all the basic things that keep economic systems and cities alive. You don't have to be a genius to do the maths on that. You don't have to be from Mensa like some of your faculty members here. That's 5.5 worlds, fine? Now unfortunately, we only have 1 world. Okay? So the challenge over your life, see, I imagine in your generation is going to be about 70 or 80. So that's till the end of the century, means that we've got to make this transition. If we don't make this transition and we don't make this together, and that's what climate change is all about, that's what I work on a little bit, we're in deep, deep trouble. Okay, so it's not only the question of growth, it's not only the question of development, it's also doing that within limits. And you can't only solve the challenge of limits using technology. You have to deal with it on the demand side. So you have to go back to an old question that we asked about 70 or 80 or 90 years ago, and that is, how much is enough? And that's a question, fortunately, that we can still ask in this country, though when I go to the malls, which I do very rarely, I'm a little sort of confounded on that question. What is enough? How much is enough for me and for my family and for my community? So basically, the core reason for this, and I'm not making a plug for becoming an urban economist, this traverse will be played out in 2 places in the next 20 years, in Chinese and Indian cities. Just maybe 1,000 places in the world will determine how this is played out, because the bulk of the incremental economic output and the emissions and the consumption will play from these places. So if you want to go out and do something and change the world, get into one of those places and help make that change, because if you don't do that, then you're doing what everybody else is doing. And what's the evidence of that? That's the evidence. 2 photographs taken, spaced by about 70 years. I guess you can recognize which mountain I'm talking about. Yeah, you can recognize that. Fine. That's the Everest Glacier there. So the question one has, the question I asked from colleagues just 3 weeks ago, just finished. The question we ask about Kumbh is, 2 Mahakumbhs from now, that is 26 years from now, what will you see at Prayag? So from the work that we do, and I think some of your faculty here work on climate, we will probably have, because of the melting of these glaciers, we will probably have flooding 2 times from now. So the Kumbh that you have now will not be possible anymore, because the floodplain will be full of water. The question is, what happens 1 or 2 Kumbhs later? And the answer might be, and we're not sure about this because the science is a little bit dodgy on this, is that, so think of an India in which a Kumbh in Prayag is not possible. That is the implication of everything that we do in our day-to-day lives. How much we consume, how much we waste, and what kind of decisions we make about the way we practice our professions. Yeah. So basically, the core story for us, and I'll just do it very quickly because I think somebody better give me this thing on time. I'm talking without looking at my watch. Is, and I'll show this to you analytically for a second. These are two axes. This is the ecological footprint. I don't know whether some of you know it. It's basically the amount of resources that are there in the Earth. The Earth can actually provide about 1. There's only 1 Earth, remember? And this is the Human Development Index. I don't know whether you people know about this. This sort of measures, yeah, okay, great, good, you know about it, good. So this is a long range plot from the mid 70s to the mid 2000s of many different countries. And this is interesting. So this is China. You can see it sort of making its way up from 75 others. You can see the lag, huh? India's typically been 20 years behind China. We're not making up very, very fast. So what has China done? China has consumed a lot of resources, export-led growth and all that kind of other stuff here, fine. And it's trying to emulate getting here. If you go and spend time in China like I do, the big thing is to become as the United States is and become better than them. But there's a minor problem here. The United States, and this is the challenge the Obama administration is facing at the moment. They've been bouncing around this space now for 30 years. This is the time of just after the first oil shock. So we would have imagined the system would have dealt with that. This country, and remember George Bush the first said, read my lips, etc., etc., etc. American lifestyle is not up for grabs, and then they went to war in Iraq. This country is a junkie as far as oil is concerned. Fine. Nothing is changing, and this is the most serious challenge that they have. I mean, even strategically, unless the tar sands are going to actually deal with it. You are not able to actually change your position in terms of resource use. So this is what the earth can provide. This is what you're actually consuming 9 to 10 times. Right? The Europeans are doing slightly better. That's where the Germans are. That's why the Germans, for example, are pushing the climate change agenda so much. This is the history of Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. You can see this. As I said, statistics and macro pictures do reflect history. So the big question for us, of course, is if that is where so-called sustainable development is, an HDI of 0.9, an ecological footprint of 1, how do you get from here to there? How do we play out this traverse over the next 30 to 50 to maybe 100 years? So the big question is, what happens to China? That's the elephant in the room. Does China go the way of the United States? Does it make its way up here, this upward sloping curve? That's where they're currently headed. Or will it make this so-called Kuznets transition, okay, all the way down here? Can they bend the curve? And the Chinese leadership is very, very concerned about this. I mean, they're really trying very hard to turn their ship around, but it's a very large ship. And then, of course, the other big question played out in history at the moment is what happens to the United States? There is no way that we can make this transition. That's why I said that geography is a little bit challenged unless this happens. The world system cannot make it unless this happens. Very clear. But what does that mean? What that means is that, and this is again going back to economic theory, is the assumption, political assumption we make is this transition will be frictionless. There will be no welfare loss that takes place as you reduce resource consumption. Fine. Now, unfortunately, history has shown us otherwise. So that is what the battle about healthcare is all about. That is what the battle about education for America and Indian taking jobs is all about. It's about the fact that you may not be able to invest, I'm talking from the American point of view, to be able to maintain your current level of human development. If you do, as an innovation-led culture, I mean, if you don't, as an innovation-led culture, you're in deep trouble. Your productivity will decline, your output will decline, and compared to somebody else, you will be in serious trouble. And this is a very serious question. And typically, when these questions like this come together, you have periods of global crisis. This led to the First World War. It led, in the case of Japan at least, certainly the Second World War, also properly Germany. So what I'm showing you, I'm not trying to scare you, is that when you look at these trends, what you see is a period of tremendous opportunity, that 1.2 going to 2.4, etc., etc. But you also see a tremendous period of challenge and conflict. And you are going to be in the middle of that. So the interesting thing for us, of course, is India, because it's been relatively incompetent, let's say. We are meant to be a poor developing country. The Chinese look at us as being useless guys, etc., etc. We have an opportunity to do what, you know, Mridal and other people talked about. We have an opportunity of tunneling through. The question is, what does that mean in practice? And this is where, you know, the question of the practice of and the theory of, and I said, you know, we're going to build a new theory of sustainable economics is all about, fine? That's exactly where it is. So basically, the key questions over the next 20 years are, can China make that traverse? Can let's say EU and the US converge without serious human development decline? Can India tunnel through? And will that happen without serious international resource conflict? Fine. It's very important for us to sort of look at it. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Maybe I'll skip. I've got a lot of things to say, but I'll skip a few slides and show you concretely what it means in our context. Okay, questions. People have questions. Let's go back on slides. These are lots of, some of these ideas are a little bit wild, somewhat new. So can we have the mic going around?
So you talked about, say, demolition of slums and such things. Now, one of the questions that's always concerned me, that we've always been thinking as far as policy is concerned, as to what is right for that scenario. Now, there doesn't seem to be a moral conflict, say with the issue of title of lands or in terms of what are the values that you kind of carry forward in the future? Now that to me seems to be a long-term worry, that if we don't hold these public-private ownership or certain things as sacred or as something that's imbibed, then we might just lose on the whole concept of the whole nation itself. Is that a concern that you see? For
That's a very important concern. Can I translate that a little bit? One of the questions that we're asking here is, you know, when the Constitution was written, the right to property was a fundamental right. We changed that in '77. The right to property is now just a, you know, it's a legal right. I mean, you're not lawyers here. I've been trained a little bit like one. So the question is, if we dilute the idea of property, will that be undermining, and I'm sort of putting words in your mouth, will that be undermining the economic system, because property is considered one of the critical questions of let's say, critical factors in the development of a capitalist economy. And remember, we are a capitalist economy. Let's not confuse ourselves. Our constitution says socialist, but actually we're a capitalist economy. Like China is also a capitalist economy. So the answer to that is very interesting. I'll sort of respond to that with a counter question. We have one of the most skewed and dysfunctional urban land markets in the world, right? And you know, any of you whose parents have, or the people who've tried to buy a house would know that. We were just talking about the values of that. The question is, why is it that in Mumbai for sure, and in many other cities, there were some numbers for Delhi in today's paper, is the nominal price in dollar terms of a property equal to that of Manhattan, when we know that the dollar rupee rate is 55 or more? Why is that happening? It is because we have a completely messed up land market environment. And there's a reason for that. There's a political economy reason for that. And when you bring together dysfunctional land markets, dysfunctional labor markets, remember I mentioned informality, and you bring together dysfunctional transportation system, then you have a real problem. And that, in a sense, very, very briefly, is a context of cities, because cities essentially, people come to city for for work. So if the labor markets don't work, then you have lots of informality. If the land and housing markets don't work, then lots of people live in slums, and Mumbai is a great example of that. And then on top of that, unlike Mumbai, which has somewhat workable transportation systems, if you have poor transportation systems, you have a complete mess. Okay, so the big question that I'm asking is, can we maintain that 6 or 7 or 8% growth, that doubling every 10 years, with the way that these markets function? And the answer is, we can't. But the reason that it does that, or at least one of the reasons that it does that, is not because we're stupid and incompetent. It is because the Indian political system, and you know, I have another India Today article, and these are popular articles, not academic ones, and I can show that to you later. The Indian political system is fueled or is funded by a disjunct between the rural and the urban land markets. So as you convert land from rural to urban, and that's what the Shingur story is all about, and this battle that we're seeing all over the country in various places, and people are very, very angry about this for good reason. And as you convert from urban residential to commercial land, which is all the story, which I mean, I can take you to many places in Pune and any other city and show you that. And within that, when you actually raise FARs or FSIs, when you make it from 1 to 4 to 8, whatever it is, to build the kind of thing that's there, it is in those transitions and the rents that are made in those transitions that the system functions. That is what actually funnels and fuels our political machine. And you know, so people will say, oh my God, what can we do? Do we do electoral reform? Do we change the constitution, etc.? Now the thing is, if you know a little bit of economic history, this was exactly the situation that the United States faced between the 1890s to about 1910. So those of you who look at economic history would know that, and it has a political and economic history. And they managed to deal with part of that problem, not all of it. We absolutely have to deal with that question, and this is a core economic question. How do you bring those two markets together, and how do you maintain the mobility system that don't create cities that grow all over the place? Because sustainability is not possible once you get into the North American mode of development, and maybe I'll show you very, very quickly a few slides of how that works to give you a sense of that. So there's a deep economic problem, a great malaise, but it has to find both political and institutional solutions. It's not possible for us to deal with it otherwise. And I think this is one of the really, really big questions that this country is going to face. Okay, so I'm going to skip a lot of slides. And okay, so any more questions? Yeah, go ahead. Let's take questions as they come, because then I can jump into them and respond, because I said it's meant to be a conversation. So the things that you want to challenge me on, you don't agree with, please speak up.
Sir,
okay, just shout then. I'll translate it.
Would you like to elucidate about Sabarmati? the riverfront to beautify the city and make it as beautiful as Paris on the advice of the British architect. But on the part of Indore Municipal Corporation, we find that it was just interim rehabilitation that was offered, as a result of which 80 to 85% of people lost their financial stability.
Yeah, you're right about that. There's a lot written about this. There's a recent piece of work that is done by a colleague from CEPT University, Darshini Mahadevia, who's done very interesting work on this question. And the fact is, just like what I showed you in Delhi, the story is very, very similar. So you do something for some sets of people within a certain framework of where you think, and the intended or unintended consequences is somebody else pays the price. This is part of the ongoing conflict that we have. It's a question of justice. This is the reason why PILs have been very effectively responded. The High Court in Gujarat has actually responded on a rehabilitation package. So this is a critical question. And the question, of course, is a question of trade-offs. So within what framework you're operating with. So within, let's say, a new liberal framework, you'd say this is fine. There would be some people who lose and other people will gain. But in a political and very actively contested like democracy like ours, people will get up and vote, and they will do other things. It may not happen very quickly, but this is one area in which there's been considerable change over the last in the political system in the last 5 to 7 years. Remember, the CPM government was upended in West Bengal partially because of this question. Okay, any other questions? Any comments? Sure. Can I? Oh, you can carry that across, yeah. Okay, if the next person wants to come in just now, you can put up your hand and we can get in the mic quickly. Yeah, sorry.
Hello, sir. My question is regarding the informal sector and policy with respect to the informal sector. If you look at the way policy looks at the informal sector, you have two things that happen generally. You have efforts where you try to formalize activities of the informal sector, and invariably you end up de-recognizing informal sector work. Or
criminalizing it, which is even worse.
Criminalizing it, yes. Or secondly, you just leave it as it is, which is a better option compared to if you look at the choices. So, why are there? And this is happening over all kinds of work. So, I'd like to know if there are. Is there any other option? Is there any other policy alternative that you can take up with respect to this sector? And are there any examples of this sort of dealing with the informal sector in a better way?
Okay, I'm going to jump a lot of slides and try and answer your question if this comes up quickly. Somewhere deep down here. Oops. Okay, I'm going to skip lots of interesting things and answer your question if I can. Okay. Okay. I'll do this quickly. So that's the numbers that I talked to you about, fine. That's the urban rural employment GDP share, fine, what I talked to you earlier. I'll jump this. This looks at the structure of the unorganized sector. Yeah. So the first thing to understand is the informal sector is not one lumped thing, fine. There are degrees of informality based on NOC and IC classification, depending on whichever one you want to look at, fine. So this looks at the whole gamut on the urban side, fine. From agriculture, interestingly, agriculture is not a small thing in urban areas. It's not a definitional question. We have agriculture happening in urban areas. So let's look at some things that are much more informal than otherwise. So this is organized. The yellows are organized, that's formal, and unorganized are the greens. So transport, high degree of informality. We know that from paratransit to whatever it is. Okay, so that's a big sector. Trade, very high level. So any sort of guess why there should be so much pushback to FDI and retail? The answer is here. It's there in the structure, fine. Okay, but the more important thing, and you may not be able to see this very well at the back, I'm sorry about that, is looking at the worker productivities, fine. This is a little dated, but this is gross value added per worker. So let's look at the numbers there. Let's look at something like transport, for example, fine. So if you look at the differential in GVA per worker, this is in lakhs, fine. So what that means is that if you are working in banking and finance, in 2004-05, the gross value added per worker is about 5 lakhs per worker, fine. Makes sense, no? And that's why lots of people want to become bankers and whatever it is, because they get paid more. Vis-a-vis somebody in trade where the average mean GVA is about 1 lakh. Cool? So what do you find in trade? You find that the productivity levels, look at the two bars, are similar between the formal and the informal sector. Fine? So actually, if you're looking at, let's say, hypothetically, a employment maximization strategy, you should be going and jumping in there directly, because if you put in that investment there, this is going to create lots of jobs. And the informal sector here is as productive as the formal sector. So the question is, if you bring in FDI and retail and do all these big box stores, is it going to help at all? It may not. And that's the core policy question here. So when you look at these questions from the policy point of view, you have to unbundle them. You have to look at the specifics, and this is the all India figure. You know, it's going to be changing from state to state. Even Manipur will be utterly different from Maharashtra. So you really have to get into some detail and dive into these questions. So labor productivity is a critical question, and the question, of course, is as you build up skills, as you improve the quality of your human development, whether it's going to change or not. So one of the big questions that I keep asking is, instead of looking at a capital-centric, infrastructure-centric approach to development, if we look at people as infrastructure, our view of things might actually be somewhat different. And this, of course, may be a transitional question for the next 15 or 20 years, but when you're putting in 15 to 17 million people into the workforce every year, you have to pay some credence to that. It's not only your multiplier or the incremental capital output ratio that matters, it's also the labor output that makes a difference. Okay? So I just park that question. I'll skip all of these slides. There are lots of mad things that are here. I'm going to jump a little more, and I'll show you maybe one last set of slides which may give you a sense of. Okay. So the interesting thing about this transition we're talking about is it's multidimensional, and that's why it makes it very interesting for academics and researchers, but much more interesting for practitioners, because it's not only that we're changing from becoming a rural agrarian society into an urban, maybe post-industrial society, but all of these things are happening at the same time. That's why this country is one of the most remarkable places for the next 20, 30, 40 years. It's not only the growth, it's so many things happening. There's an energy transition happening, there's an information transition which we're all part of, just now happening. There's also a livelihood transition happening. And of course, there's also a big political transition happening. All of these things are happening together. The interesting thing about it, of course, is there is no precedence in all of history of this happening in a democratic environment. China is the other example. China is doing a lot of these things. But China fundamentally, at least at the current point of time, is not a democratic society. So we have no historical precedence of this happening. And that's why what we're doing together and individually is very, very important to us. So just to give you a sense of some numbers here, okay, so some stylized facts, to give you a sense of what it means. You know, there's lots of abstract stuff I've been talking about here, okay. So I've given it to you in sort of, not in billions now, so you know what's happening here, fine. So these are 2010 prices, so slightly lower down whatever we're talking about here. So we're saying by 2040 you become lakh rupees per capita. That's roughly what we're talking about. So if you assume 7% growth rate, that's what's happening here. Look at the urban GDP. That's the power of compounding. It's very simple, you know. Any sort of fine. Look at the delta on that. Growing from 9 to 30 lakh crores per year, the delta, just the change. Okay? And this is the opportunity that you're going to be living in. If we may able to maintain 7%, of course, if we muck up things, then things are going to be very big. And that is the question of the urban informal sector. At the current level of informality, look at this. Look at that. It's unbelievably large. Yeah, 10 times in size. But to make all of this possible, of course, you have to do 2-3 other things. Life expectancy, the core question that we're talking about. We're expecting it to rise to about more than 80. But more than that, we have to deal with the question of human development, which is going to be really hard. We are hugely underinvested in this country in terms of health. Less so in education, but still a big issue. And finally, the big question is, can we do something about this consumption Gini? I guess all of you know about Ginis. The question is, do we want to go the route of South Africa, Or do we want to go the route of the current Brazil that we've seen for the first time in history actually being able to reduce the Gini significantly during Lula's time? And of course, all of that has to be done in a transition that keeps our carbon footprint at sort of under 2 tons per capita. I mean, 1 is where we should be going to, but that's where it is. So in some senses, the question of economic macro management is a very, very critical one, right? And of course, there's a bit of a problem here. The problem is, as I said, all this happens and depends upon cities. But the political economy question, who manages our cities? Okay, just look at this. Fine, $1.2 trillion managed by about 25,000 people. Our numbers could be a little back and forth. You know all of them. That's our compact elite. Fine. Yeah. So basically, about 20,000 people help manage $1.2 trillion. So, wow, wouldn't you want to become part of that? But less than 5% of them have any idea of how to do this stuff. So is it a surprise when you go out on the road you find the city is not working? It's no surprise, because we're not educated to deal with this kind of stuff. We have no idea how to deal with these questions, right? But more important, the guys who actually manage the system, fine, just look at them. These are all the people who really manage them. There are only about 15,000 people. So when you study institutions, what you'll realize is usually it's a pyramidal structure, fine. The top is narrower than the base. We have a problem here. We have no middle. This is a classic problem of the missing middle. We do not have people to manage our systems, fine. That's the reason why I'm in the process of building this national university, which will basically fill out this gap in the middle. So whether it's at the top or in the middle, of course there's a little bit more training here, we have a huge problem. We have a country of whatever, nearly 400 million people living in cities, 385, whatever it is. We don't have people to run them. So this is a growth business. So you want to set up another college that does what Symbiosis does to fill this up. It's going to fill up. We were just talking about a new school of urban design. The numbers show you that. That's what the imperatives of growth are all about. But the quality of these people will help determine what choices we make. And if we don't get the quality right, we're going to be in deep trouble. Because as I said, there is no precedence for this transition in history, so we don't have anybody to copy. You cannot copy Houston or New York or Chicago or even Beijing for this. You have to fix it yourself. We don't have a theory, we have very little practice. So one of the most dramatic challenges that we have in building these professions is to figure out how to do this stuff, fine. So I'll stop there. There were lots of other interesting things, but
okay, we now move on to the highlight of the event, actually, for today. That's the prize distribution ceremony. Give us 2 minutes for everything to get settled. Okay, our first category, any guesses, are the Academic Excellence Awards. First of all, okay, you need to know the order as well, right? So, first of all, a huge round of applause for our Deputy Director, Rudra sir. He has been behind the entire effort of getting this through. Okay, so the first award for MSc SY goes to Palak. May we please have you on the stage, and we request our chief guest to just give you the award. Okay, it's hard to know who are the award winners, so just be ready. Second award is for Jyoti. Third is Himangi. We were trying to limit our space, so in one slide we put all 3 pictures in. And that's how we get it through. They don't know, ma'am, who's winning. No, I don't think so. So, now for the MSc. F5, we have Richa. And there's a tie for the third spot between Devika and Aditi. Huge round of applause, please. I think the sari will take a bit of a while. Okay. For the TYI, we have the first prize going to Tahira. We've chosen a very nerdy pick for her, so just wanted to show the academic excellence given. Tahira, can you have quickly on the screen? Second award goes to Soumya, who's actually not visible in the picture, but that's the way she is. Third prize goes to Saloni. Quite busy in academic activity right there. For the SY, the first prize goes to Prachi. Goes to Sheetal, using a lot of hair oil in this case. Third prize goes to Anshul. For the F5, first prize goes to Shruti. Second goes to Manantika. And third goes to Arshia. Quickly, can we have you on the stage, please? Okay, we move on to our second category, that is for sports. So the Sports Excellence Awards for basketball goes to Nisha. For squash it goes to, you don't need to keep any suspense out here, I guess. To Bharat. For the adventure sports it goes to okay, we get the name right this time. Shivang. Third category is for the co-curricular activities. Shivang is not there, so we can keep the award. There are a lot of people who are willing to take the awards in place of him. So, okay, a valuable member for Arthaniti, one of our groups, goes to
I'm TNT, I'm dynamite.
Nirupama.
And I'll win the fight.
Lot of hard work. Happy birthday, Nirupama, by the way.
Overload. TNT. Watch me explode. I'm TNT.
A valuable member for the picnic.
Dynamite.
Sauradeep.
And I'll win the fight. TNT.
He's having a hard time in the picture around here. Quickly, can we quickly have you on the stage?
I'm TNT, I'm dynamite.
Valuable member for Raga.
Fight. TNT.
Pooja.
Power load. TNT. Watch me explode.
The entire devotion
I'm TNT,
around
I'm
here.
dynamite. TNT.
And Jishnu.
Fight. TNT. I'm a power load.
Thoughtful, soulful music expert around here. A valuable member of Thap.
I'm TNT, I'm dynamite.
Sanchari.
And I'll win the fight. TNT. I'm a power load. TNT.
And Apuva. Quickly on the stage, please.
I'm TNT, I'm dynamite. TNT. And I'll win the fight. TNT.
Okay, our next category is for the special awards. Yeah, okay. We're just waiting. We are already ahead of time, so I guess that's why we are quite in a hurry. Sorry. Okay, our next category is for special achievements. For MUN goes to our drummer Shiva. He's actually doing a lot of money around here. He's not here. Okay. For economic poster competition, we have Ambika and Geet. Okay, there is a special award for placements in this, I'll say what, job crunching year, given to someone who's devoted a lot of time on placements. Rahul. Please make a note of this picture actually. That's the way the job scene looks like right now. Best student researcher alumni. Do we have Rahul here? No. Okay. Best student researcher alumni. We don't have them down here, but let's still announce the name. Shailaja and Prarthana. Okay. Our next category is for the outstanding students. Spent a lot of time in class and outside class. Bad one. Okay. Outstanding student award. So we have the first winner. That's Kripa, the BSc FI. When we see you running, it's the Chariots of Fire actually playing now. And Rahul, please. Quickly. For BSc SY, it's Sapna and Zishan. Outstanding scores shown in soccer by Zishan. BSc TY, Soumya. Going to have a cupboard full today. Lot of work. And our 100% ranker, Omkar and Karan. A nickname for Omkar, the 100% guy. FY, we have Shreya, and Jishnu. Spending a lot of time gymming. I think that's what happens to students of SSC, spending time. Okay. Outstanding Student Award for SY. Any guesses? Jyoti. I love the second pick around here. Jyotsna. The J effect, what do you call it? And Nishant having a Marathi thali. Okay, our next category is main category for the Director's Choice Award. It's the final category we have today. Music, please. So, the first award for the Director's Choice goes to Samita Priyal from FY. that's it. I think quite an abrupt end. But thanks a lot to our chief guest, our advisor, Dr. Jyoti, and our deputy director, Dr. Rudra. We now move into lunch, I suppose. Vote of thanks. Really, sorry. Okay, a vote of thanks, especially by Dr. Rudra. Doesn't talk a lot. So.
I would like to thank Professor Ravi for coming here and giving his insights and warning Mandar and Shreya. I would also like to thank Jyoti ma'am for everything and all the students. A special thanks goes to Suryavanshi ji, Deepashi ma'am and her team, all the faculty members and students, especially to, let me think, Apurva, Nikita, Pooja, Aman, right? Yeah, for the Saraswati Vandana. And Shreya, Rishad, Meet, Vidisha, Diksha, and last by not the least, Mr. Utsavnath for doing almost everything for this event, and Dipanshu as well. Thank you. And enjoy. In the second half, we have something I'm not sure about, but we have enjoyed a lot, and we hope you have enjoyed a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, we are going to have the farewell function for second year MSc by 2:30. We'll start.
Okay, a huge round of applause for our chief guest and our advisor and our deputy director once again. Thank you. Thanks a lot for.